Late afternoon sunlight bathed the country's most famous bungee bridge, the Serpentine Arch in gold, stretching across a lush green canyon below. The wind blew in gusts, carrying bursts of laughter, the buzzing of drones, and the thumping music from loudspeakers. Along the railings, clusters of young people in branded sportswear held video cameras and streamed live, their phones constantly shifting angles. She stepped onto the bridge. A faded gray t-shirt, worn-out sweatpants with frayed knees, and sneakers with soles ground thin. Slung across her shoulder was an old canvas crossbody bag, its strap fraying and stitching coming undone. Isabel Kramer, 34, appeared like a speck of dust amidst a party of lights and muscle. A whistle rang out from the left. A young man in a Versace jacket, his hair tied in a high man bun, burst out laughing. "Hey, Auntie. Remember to scream loud for TikTok. Okay?" The people nearby chuckled. A girl with a mic clipped to her sports bra, live streaming to thousands, chimed in. "Housewives doing bungee is the new trend. Y'all, get ready for the cringe moment." Isabel didn't respond. She simply removed her sunglasses, tied her hair back, and kept walking. Her eyes met no one's, but she sliced silently through the crowd like a knife through air. That evening, the Serpentine Bridge wasn't just hosting an ordinary bungee session. It was the venue for a showcase competition between professional athletes, famous influencers, and special guests from sports organizations. People came here to film the most stunning, daring, and outrageous jumps. She, with her bare face and quiet gait, didn't belong. 3 young men near the northern end of the bridge began to take notice. One of them, Milo, sunglasses perched on his forehead, jerked his chin toward Isabel. "What's that old lady up to? Climb up there and cry. Maybe?" Jonas, his friend, guffawed and clapped. €20 says she chickens out before she even reaches the edge. The girl in the group, Clara, a popular fitness influencer, pulled out a tissue and scribbled on it, "Permission to cry before jumping." Then she held it up to the camera. "Hit that like button if you think she'll drop tears before she drops." Still, Isabel didn't react. At the gear check area, she set down her canvas bag and carefully inspected her harness, her eyes closely examining each hook and clasp. One of the event staff, tall, bearded, named Rick, gave her a once-over, then turned to his colleague. "She's actually jumping? People like that usually come for photo ops." Julia, the female staffer, glanced at Isabel's registration form and chuckled. "Nothing special here. No social media accounts, no sponsors. Probably just here for the thrill." Rick nodded, then turned to Isabel with a half-smile. "Want a GoPro? Or are you just here for the view?" Isabel replied, her voice soft but firm. "Please attach one. I want to try a triple spin." Rick laughed like she had told the oldest joke in the book. No one paid attention to Marcus, a middle-aged man in a weathered windbreaker, watching quietly from the technical guest seating area. A former stunt performer, Marcus had jumped from helicopters into the ocean for over 40 action films. He squinted, watching how Isabel fastened her harness. "She's no rookie," he murmured to the person next to him. "That way she checks the straps. That's military, and not recent." His companion looked on, but the crowd had begun to cheer as the first jump launched. Marcus scribbled a note in his old, battered notebook. "Isabel K. Unusual. Watch further." Isabel stood there, hands gripping the railing, eyes fixed on the abyss. Her ponytail whipped in the wind, shirt rising and falling with her breath. But her hand, the one gripping the rope, did not tremble. The drones were sliced through the air, merging with the thumping electronic music from a portable speaker, turning the Serpentine Arch Bridge into an open-air festival. Beneath was a dizzying abyss, but up on the bridge, fear had no place. Not for those who were live-streaming. Isabel stood in the prep zone, double-checking her harness clips. She paid no attention to the lenses pointed her way, but others weren't about to miss their chance. Clara turned to her phone's camera, her voice sugary sweet. "Hey fam, the lady's about to jump. Place your bets. Tap that hard if you think she's gonna scream loud enough to shake the canyon, and share this video if you think she's gonna faint." The crowd burst into laughter. Some even preemptively hit record hoping to catch a viral fail. Milo snapped his fingers, calling over the betting coordinator. Hey, €50 says she can't even finish the first jump. No way she's going through with it. Isabel heard every word. She didn't flinch. She simply adjusted her harness, then reached into her canvas bag and pulled out a small cloth. With one smooth swipe, she wiped the dust from her helmet, clipped the GoPro onto the mount, and secured it in place. Every move efficient, practiced. Rick, the supervising staff member, chuckled and shook his head. You're pretty confident. You do know that a triple spin is something only pros dare attempt, right? Isabel answered without looking away from the main anchor clip. I know. She said nothing more. Rick meant to laugh again, but didn't. There was something in her eyes that unsettled him. He'd seen that look before, in people who didn't talk much but always knew exactly what they were doing. Her first step onto the wooden platform let out a low creak. The wind caught her ponytail and tossed it back. The safety harness pulled taut around her hips like a familiar exoskeleton that had long since molded to her body. Jonas, who had been cracking jokes the entire time, now stared. Wait, are you guys seeing this? She's calm. Like really calm. Something's off. Milo glanced over. Don't tell me you're getting nervous. If she pulls off that spin, I'll drink Red Bull through my nose with my hat on backwards. Clara rolled her eyes at both of them. Don't be fooled. That quiet act? Classic fear in hiding. First jump and she'll collapse. But Marcus, watching from the expert seating row, leaned forward. His eyes tracked Isabel's every step. The moment of the jump. Isabel bent down, checked her safety line one last time. Then she looked out, not at the cameras, not at the audience, but toward the horizon where the setting sun spilled golden light over stone and shadow. The wind lashed, cold, strong, testing. But her eyes remained steady. The event MC, a man with a booming voice like a cathedral bell, shouted into the mic. Up next, a completely fresh face on the scene of adrenaline daredevils. Let's hear it for Madam Isabel Kramer. Laughter erupted from the crowd. Someone shouted, Get ready for the most elegant surrender jump ever. Rick gave the thumbs up. The green light blinked on. Isabel didn't hesitate. She jumped. No scream. No tremble. No theatrics. 1, 2, 3. Spin. A flawless triple rotation midair. Legs straight. Arms tucked. Her body tightened like a bullet in motion. The wind screamed past her ears. Her face utterly calm. The GoPro captured every frame, not a single wasted movement. At the bottom, the cord snapped back, catching her in a perfect arc. Her body swung in ideal rhythm. No scream. No stumble. Only deadly silence. Stillness. On the bridge, the crowd held its breath. 5 full seconds of stunned silence. Then an eruption. What the hell just happened? Who is she? Did she really just land a no-error triple flip? Marcus shot to his feet, eyes blazing. Perfect down to the millimeter. That's military grade. No doubt. Rick stared at the data feed. Stable speed, low landing shock. GoPro footage clean. Clara was speechless. Milo exhaled. That's not possible. Jonas, who had bet she'd quit, leaned over and whispered. So, are you drinking that Red Bull through your nose or what? Milo said nothing. Isabel was hoisted back up. She removed her helmet, detached the GoPro, and stepped onto the wooden platform. Her hands didn't shake. Her breath didn't hitch. She picked up her canvas bag, slung it over her shoulder, and calmly walked back to the waiting line. A child in the crowd tugged on his mother's sleeve. Mom, is she a superhero? The mother shook her head, eyes fixed on Isabel. She's something you should remember. Silence is a form of strength. The sun tilted toward the mountains, casting a golden glow across the bridge. The drone still buzzed overhead, but the crowd had fallen quiet. Isabel's jump, silent, flawless, had disrupted the fragile balance between showmanship and true skill. Milo stood motionless, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the abyss as if trying to solve an unspeakable equation. Beside him, Jonas exhaled. Any idea where she came from? Clara tapped her phone screen. No Instagram, no Facebook, no TikTok, no recorded jumps anywhere. Nothing. It's like she dropped out of the sky, Jonas murmured, and landed a move cleaner than any of us ever have. Inside the tech cabin, Rick was scrolling back through the registration list. His eyes stopped on one line. Isabel Kramer, occupation. Senior mechanical engineer. Emergency contact. Military officer. Rank, colonel? Rick paused. She's military? Julia passed by, overheard, and leaned in to glance at the screen. Maybe ex-military. Reason for discharge. Not listed. Just says, by special request. Yeah. This one's not a civilian. Rick frowned. Then why didn't she say anything? Julia sighed. Some people don't need to speak to prove themselves. Across the bridge, Vanessa Rousseau, a 3-time European bungee champion from France, stood leaning against the railing. Her solo jump earlier had been underwhelming. Her eyes never left Isabel. Her coach, Luca, approached with a towel and a bottle of water. That girl's got you rattled? Vanessa didn't look away. Not rattled. Just trying to remember where I've seen that look before. And Vanessa answered slowly. Special training camp, Pyrenees, 7 years ago. There was a woman there. Braided hair, lean, barely ever smiled. A storm hit one afternoon and no one in the class dared jump in that wind. She was the only one who did. And she didn't miss a single move. Luca followed her gaze. Isabel? Vanessa nodded slightly. In the resting area, Isabel sat alone on a bench near the edge of the bridge. She slipped off her shoes and dusted the soles. Her fingers quietly opened her worn canvas bag and pulled out a small notebook. Its leather edges frayed, the cover marked with a small paragliding symbol. Inside were pages filled with technical notes. Force equations, weight ratios, wind calculations, optimal spin angles. She turned to a page written in bolder ink. When people begin to underestimate you, silence becomes a weapon. She looked up toward Milo, still standing with his group in the distance. No hatred in her gaze, just observation, like someone reading the body language of a hunting pack that had just lost its teeth. At the far end of the bridge, Milo kicked the fence lightly and muttered, I don't know why this bothers me so much. Clara shot him a look. Because she pulled off something we've trained years to do. Jonas cut in. No, it's not just that. She doesn't need an audience. She doesn't need to prove anything. And that's what makes people respect her. That's what makes us feel threatened. Milo didn't answer. Inside, frustration churned with confusion. He'd always seen himself as sharp, quick, talented, the center of the scene. But today, a woman with an old canvas bag had taken all the attention, without saying a word. She's making us look like a joke, he muttered. Clara shot back dryly. No, we did that to ourselves. She just jumped. Back where Isabel sat, a chime rang out across the sound system, warning that the second round of jumps would begin in 15 minutes. She stood, folded the notebook, and tucked it back into her bag. No one noticed the slight tremor in her hands as she zipped it closed. A human tremble, small, honest. But she took a deep breath, stood tall, and gripped the bag strap firmly. No one knew that, in her mind, an old memory had surfaced, of jumping out of a military plane at age 22. The sky overcast, the air slicing cold. She'd been the last one left in the bay. She hadn't jumped because she was fearless. She jumped because no one else dared to go first. And they needed someone to believe in, just like today. They laughed. But none of them had done what she did. And that was why they hated her. The announcement echoed across the Serpentine Arch. Round 2 jump sequence begins in 10 minutes. The energy on the bridge had shifted. The initial noise had faded, replaced by a low, simmering tension. The eyes that once mocked now looked at Isabel with a mix of irritation and unease, as if her presence had scratched the surface of their self-assured reflections. In the organizer's booth, Jenna, a young reporter from Extreme Now, was replaying Isabel's GoPro footage. The image of that triple spin, smooth as a blade slicing through air, made her exclaim, "That's insane. No one unknown jumps like that." Beside her, a technician nodded quietly. He pointed at the harness data. Oscillation amplitude is 7% below ideal variance. Maximum tension matches textbook military training thresholds. This wasn't luck. Jenna turned toward Isabel across the bridge. There she was, calmly preparing for her second jump. No talk, no showboating, just working. "Who is she?" Jenna murmured. At the equipment bay, Rick and Julia were adjusting the tracking board. Rick glanced at the jumper list and spoke under his breath. Earlier, I saw Isabel spot a fault in her safety line. She fixed it, didn't report it, didn't show it off, just did what needed to be done. Julia froze. So she's... Rick said nothing. He simply tightened his grip on the clipboard. In the queue, Isabel was checking her harness again. Her eyes scanned each carabiner. Fingers moved swiftly, but surely. She didn't notice Lisa, a veteran coach, watching her from a distance. Lisa stepped closer and stopped a few feet away. You check your gear like a soldier. Isabel didn't look up. I had to learn how to save myself. You don't always have someone to double-check for you. Lisa narrowed her eyes. Paratrooper. A pause. Isabel nodded once. Lisa didn't press further. She simply handed her a special-grade carabiner, the kind only high-level trainers used. This one's mine. If you're going for a triple again, use it. Trust me. Isabel took it, met her gaze for a moment. No words of thanks, they both understood. Skill doesn't need flattery. Only recognition. Elsewhere on the bridge, Milo strode back to his group, tense, speaking fast. She's stealing all the spotlight. If she nails another triple, we're gonna look like a joke. Jonas gave a dry laugh. You think we don't already? Clara sat cross-legged, watching Isabel. What are you planning? Milo didn't answer. His eyes drifted toward the gear station. The thought formed. At the prep zone, Isabel placed her canvas bag down like before, removed her sunglasses, and reattached the GoPro. As she turned to check the wind, a figure slipped behind her and subtly loosened the backup clip on her secondary line. Just a tiny shift. If she attempted another triple, the slack might affect tension. Not enough to cause an accident, but enough to sabotage the fluidity of the jump. Enough to make it look flawed on video. Milo walked away, silent. 5 minutes later, Isabel returned and clipped in as always. But her fingers, trained to recognize every familiar click, paused. Something wasn't right. This lock felt loose. She bent down, disengaged the clip completely, and used a small toolkit from her canvas bag to reset and retighten it. No one noticed except Rick, watching from a distance. He slowly set the clipboard down, face tight. She caught it. Julia looked up. Caught what? Rick shook his head. Someone tampered with her gear, but she's not reporting it. She just fixed it. And she's still going to jump. At the jump platform, the MC's voice boomed. And now, the name shaking up social media this afternoon. Isabel Kramer, back for jump 2. This time, the crowd didn't laugh. Some looked curious. Others, excited. Isabel stepped forward, eyes locked straight ahead. The wind was stronger now, the sun lower. Everything was more dangerous. She knelt, clipped her GoPro again, and checked each connection. A gust of wind tossed her hair. She fastened her helmet strap. Then she jumped, triple flip, and a mid-air twist. Her body rotated like a spinning pinwheel, shifting from horizontal to vertical and back again. A maneuver so risky most wouldn't dare try. A few degrees off and it would throw off her center, tangle the cord. But not her. Perfect. The GoPro caught every motion, every arc a geometry lesson, every retraction crisp. The wind spiraled around her, but didn't move a strand of hair. The roar of the crowd exploded as she landed. The MC nearly shouted into the mic. What on earth did we just witness? A triple twist? On Serpentine Arch? That's history. In the audience, Lisa smiled faintly. Marcus, the former stuntman, stood and applauded. Meanwhile, Milo sat down hard, staring at his own hands. No one pointed fingers, but the tension in the air made it clear. Jonas said nothing. Clara glanced at Milo and just shook her head. Isabel stepped back onto the bridge. This time, no one laughed. Some clapped. Some lowered their phones. And some began to ask her name. A child stepped forward, phone in hand. Miss, do you teach jumping? Isabel smiled, gently, and replied, I do, but the first lesson isn't about spinning. Then what is it? Staying calm. In a crowd that wants to see you fail. On the Serpentine Arch Bridge, as the sunset slipped behind the mountains, everything changed. No more whistles. No more laughter. No one was live-streaming Isabelle Kramer polishing her shoes or adjusting her harness anymore. But every eye was on her. Her silence was no longer a joke. It had become a question mark so sharp it unsettled those who couldn't answer it. In the technical coordination booth, Jenna, the Extreme Now reporter, received a message from the event organizers with a PDF attachment. She read it, then paled. "Rick, is this real?" Rick walked over. Jenna turned her laptop toward him. On screen was a classified profile. Former Special Forces paratrooper, unit undisclosed. The only female pilot to complete training in Black Vulture. An elite tactical jump program of international level. Lead engineer of the Vortex-S bungee cord, the very system being used today. Founder of Skyark Base and Bungee Institute, a training center for Hollywood stunt jumpers and European extreme sports competitors. Jenna whispered, "So, she's silently evaluating her own gear?" Rick nodded. "And maybe evaluating the crowd's integrity too." Back in Milo's group, a heavy silence hung in the air. No one laughed. No one spoke. Milo crushed the drink can in his hand, eyes unsettled. "So she designed the cords we're jumping on?" Jonas nodded. "And she's Special Forces. And an instructor at a program we didn't even dare apply to." Clara, stripped of her usual bravado, spoke slowly. "So, everything we said, every video we mocked her in, was us laughing at the person who made sure we wouldn't die on this bridge." No one added a word. In a quiet corner near the tech zone, Nico, Milo's friend, who had been silently watching Isabelle all afternoon, took out his phone and started a reverse live stream. "Everyone, this is important. The woman we mocked today, the one some of us called that old-fashioned auntie, isn't just anyone. She's the lead engineer behind the safety cord that saved our lives. She's a silent legend." His face reflected guilt. "And we called her a joke." Within seconds, the stream exploded. Hundreds of comments. Then thousands. People began sharing old clips. Moments when Isabelle was mocked, had paper thrown at her, was live-streamed and ridiculed. But the tone had changed. Who is she? Real greatness doesn't need to scream. The embodiment of calm, precision, and mastery. In the rest zone, Isabelle was tightening her shoes when a staff member approached and handed her a folded note. "Someone asked me to give you this. I didn't read it." She opened it. Handwritten. Firm. "I'm sorry. I thought you didn't belong here. The truth is, we're the ones who don't deserve to share this space with you." She didn't react. Just folded it and slipped it into her jacket pocket. But for the first time that day, she closed her eyes for a few seconds. Not from exhaustion, but from finally letting go of something heavy. Not satisfaction, just a quiet sadness. She'd long grown used to being judged, but never to being made invisible. At the main stage, Vanessa, the pro athlete whose first jump had faded in Isabelle's shadow, stood by the main camera. She turned to the MC and said softly, "I'm not taking the final jump. She should close the event." The MC looked surprised. "But you're Red Bull's rep. There's a live stream contract." Vanessa shrugged. "Some days you need to step aside so the one who deserves it can step forward. Today is one of those days." Before the final jump, Isabelle walked to the platform. No one asked her to move forward. The crowd stepped aside instinctively. She was no longer the odd lady with the old shoes. She was the center now. Undeniably, the MC picked up the mic, speaking with solemn respect for the first time that day. "Everyone, the final jumper of today's event is the very person who designed the safety system on this bridge. A former Special Forces soldier, a trainer, a symbol of calm under fire. Isabelle Kramer." Gasps, applause, and tears from some who had once mocked her. She walked to the wooden ledge, put on her sunglasses, tied her hair back, attached the GoPro. No speech, no music, just the sound of wind rising, surging. She leapt, not just as an athlete but as a declaration. triple spin, mid-air twist, and then, arms opened wide at the peak of the arc, like a gesture of release, of freedom from judgment. Her body cut through the golden air, framed by the final light of day. Wind screamed past. The cord caught. The GoPro recorded every second. No mistakes, no screams, just stillness, sacred, absolute. She was lifted back up, removed her helmet, walked past the crowd. This time, no mockery. Some applauded, some lowered their phones, and some simply asked her name. The child from earlier stepped forward, phone in hand. "Miss, do you teach jumping?" Isabel smiled, just faintly, and said, "I do, but the first lesson's not about spinning." "Then what is it?" "Staying calm, when the crowd wants to see you fail." 3 days after Isabel Kramer's final jump at Serpentine Arch, social media was still ablaze. The video of her executing a perfect triple spin mid-air, arms outstretched into the sunset, had become the most shared clip of the week across Europe. But people weren't talking about the technique first. They talked about the calm in her eyes as she stepped onto the platform, about her worn-out shoes, about how she stayed silent in a crowd hungry for her to fail, and then jumped, as if the world didn't need to understand her, only witness her. Clara, who once mocked Isabel live with silly props and snide remarks, now sat silently in front of her phone, where an endless stream of angry messages poured in. She had lost nearly 30,000 followers in 2 days. Sponsors quietly scrubbed her face from their websites. The old clip, where she held up a note reading permission to cry, was now everywhere, a symbol of arrogant ignorance. One anonymous message read, "Thanks for letting her shine by making yourself the shadow." She deleted it, but she couldn't delete the knot in her chest. She kept seeing Isabel's gaze. Not hateful, not triumphant, just listening, like someone tuned into a music the crowd would never hear. Milo, who had secretly tampered with Isabel's gear, was officially disqualified from the competitive circuit when security footage was released. He didn't speak. He didn't post an apology. He just sat alone in the corner of the old gym, where he'd once practiced hundreds of jumps to become the star of the bridge. That afternoon, an email arrived from an unfamiliar address. "You can still learn if you truly want to. IK." No accusation, no bitterness, just a link to the beginner's course at SkyArc, the training center Isabel founded. Milo read it again and again. His hands trembled. His tears didn't come from failure, but from a kind of forgiveness that left no one to blame, only the need to grow. Jenna, the reporter from Extreme Now, was the first to reveal Isabel's true background: Special Forces paratrooper, tactical pilot, lead designer of the safety system used at the bridge, founder of SkyArc, a center that trained Hollywood stunt jumpers and Europe's top athletes. Her feature became a kind of collective confession. The internet began to reckon with the truth. They had laughed at the only person who could have saved them if something had gone wrong. In her closing report of the week, Jenna said a line that left her viewers still. "The world doesn't lack noise. It lacks those who stay silent and make everyone listen." Vanessa, the professional athlete who had once smirked at Isabel's first jump, declined to take her final turn. When asked why, she simply said, "Sometimes the best thing isn't to prove you're better, but to know when you're standing in the presence of something beyond comparison." She reposted a clip of Isabel helping a young girl fix her harness during break, with the caption, "I'm an athlete. She's the foundation." That video went more viral than the triple spin. And Isabel? She gave no interviews, refused all media requests, offered no post-event speech. 3 days later, she returned to SkyArc, just as usual. Same canvas bag, same gray shirt, same worn-out shoes. The younger trainees gathered around her, not because she was famous, but because she was the only one who taught them to check gear not by theory, but by feel. In her office, the plaque awarded by the event organizers still wasn't hung. She placed it beside a small cactus pot, beneath a wooden sign carved by hand. "Courage has no uniform." One late afternoon, She stood watching a 10-year-old girl attempt her first jump on the training line. The harness was slightly misaligned. Isabel stepped in, adjusted it, gentle but precise. "Good," she said. "But next time, don't let the wind catch your left side. That happened to me once." The girl looked up. "It did." Isabel smiled softly. "I've made many mistakes, but the important thing is to never let someone else decide when you stop." She turned away, hair tied neatly, eyes fixed on the mountains. Behind her, a ripple of clapping from the trainees, a murmur of quiet respect, grateful glances from those who once judged her. But she didn't need to be remembered. What she did wasn't meant to be seen. She just needed to jump and keep going. And that's how Isabel Kramer left a legacy. Not through applause, not through the media, but through a silence so powerful the world had no choice but to listen. Early morning. Thin clouds drifted over the Skyark peaks. The jump deck was still, light mist clinging to the wood. The warning siren hadn't sounded. The trainees hadn't arrived. But someone was already there. Standing tall, hair tied back, eyes on the line where sky met mountain. Isabel wasn't wearing a GoPro. No protective gear. Just herself, as she had stood on hundreds of mornings before. The wind brushed past. She closed her eyes. Not to prepare for a jump, but to feel something deeper than gravity. The weight of passing it on. Behind her, the training room door opened. Footsteps followed. But this time, it wasn't eager children or tech staff checking cables. It was Milo. Behind him, Jonas. And a few steps further, Clara. No makeup, hair tied low, eyes serious, like someone entering their first real class. Isabel didn't turn. But she knew. That gait, that breath, not casual visitors. They were people who had been wrong, and had come back not to beg forgiveness, but to start again. "You're early," she said gently, no need to ask why. Milo stepped forward, his voice steady, but low. "We don't want to just say sorry. We want to understand." Isabel turned. Her gaze was calm, as always, but this time something softer flickered in it. No one understands everything at the start. What matters is that you're willing to stand at the edge again. Clara spoke carefully. "I used to think I was strong because people followed me. Now, I just want to learn how not to let my ego step on others." Isabel nodded. "Good, but it won't be easy, because the hardest part isn't in the jump. It's in the moment when you stand still and don't quit." In the distance, Vanessa appeared carrying a file, a part-time teaching application. She walked up, placed it in Isabel's hands. "I'm not here for a job. I'm here to help. No fanfare, no speeches." But in that moment, Skyark became more than a training center. It became a meeting ground for those who had failed, been proud or fallen, but chose to rise differently. That noon, a child attempted their first spin. The cord pulled tight. Their body tilted. The angle was off. They wobbled in midair. From the deck above, Isabel signaled, "Don't scream. Hold your line. Trust your body." The child did. Not perfectly, but without panic. Applause broke out. Isabel only nodded, eyes still on the jumper. Every jump was a reckoning with oneself. And that wasn't something you learned from claps, but from silence. Before sunset, Milo stayed behind. He approached Isabel, holding a sheaf of paper. "I recorded everything from that day. How you checked the line. How you fixed the clip. I want to redo everything from the ground up. No shortcuts." Isabel took it. She looked at him, no longer a student, no longer who he was. "Then you've understood," she said. Milo shook his head. Quietly. "I think I'm only just beginning. But I won't stop." Isabel handed him a worn leather notebook. The same one she had used to log notes before her third jump. "Continue here. But remember, no triumph is worth the loss of decency." That night, with the center empty, Isabel returned to the jump deck. She looked to the sky, no event lights, no drone sounds. Only wind. She tied her hair, adjusted her laces, then stepped onto the platform alone. Because to her, the most important jumps are the ones no one sees. She jumped, 1 rotation. 2. A twist. The wind struck hard from the left, but her body held. She wasn't jumping to prove anything. She was jumping, so she'd never forget what it felt like to begin. And so, in a small mountain center, among those who had once erred, and one who never sought fame, a new story quietly began. Not written by the greatest jumps, but by those who rise again, after being underestimated, and choose silence but never stillness.